Dear Mr. Chairman, dear board, dear friends, welcome to our presentation today. This is Team Pax Verbal. You're about to witness our presentation. Enjoy.
Hello, gentlemen. Sorry for being late. An important business meeting. Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, what's up?
So, guys, what are we going to discuss today?
So basically, we are working with this Nigerian organization called EDEMCS, and we're trying to analyze its processes and to reflect on its development path from a holistic and integral perspective, and basically to see how the organization evolves, and then to find some suggestions for its future.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the goal should be to create a model to somehow help them out, help them analyze their problems. So I think we should start off by taking Lesseman Schiefer's integral model, and then from that model on, build our own and see what it...
Exactly.
Okay, so this organization you want to discuss about, EDEMCS, can you just shortly tell me what is this about? Like, what can you elaborate on this?
So basically everything started in 1997 when Father Anselm Adodo founded Pax Rebels. It's basically a pharmaceutical company which relies on traditional Nigerian medicine in order to promote health, economic growth and knowledge creation. And based on that he wrote his PhD thesis, which then evolved into EDEMCS, which is basically an umbrella corporation trying to promote development and education in the region.
Does EDEMCS stand for anything? Or
that's a good point, thank you very much.
It's curious.
The name stands for EU Development Educational Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society.
Okay.
And they have a lot of different programs to help the community. For example, they give microfinance loans to local farmers and to women as well, to try to empower the community. They have training programs for the women to give them the basic knowledge about business and technology management. And that's this whole idea of empower the individuals and empower the community as a whole, and giving them the resources to act and to impact.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so from what you say, I mean, Pax Verbal seems to be an organization that's quite well established, we can say. From what comes up to my mind right now is that there are still a few problems that could be tackled. First thing that comes up to my mind is those slow processes that I have the impression, I've read some reports about them, and where they can be talking for 2 or 3 hours about some issue without coming to a conclusion sometimes, and without really getting something out of it. So there's also a lack of initiative that I've witnessed a little bit.
Like I have the figure, I have the feeling, maybe it's related because I have the feeling Father Adodo is a strong leader and people really respect him, and maybe, I don't know, he's a strong figure of authority.
Okay, but in that regard we also have to point out that he's a really, really humble person who's not pushing himself into that position. I mean, for example, he has no official position in the EDEMCS. However, obviously, as you pointed out before, everyone's still relying heavily on his influence and his guidance, and that's something that could be tackled maybe. Okay,
you mentioned some model you wanted to discuss, this integral thing. I have no clue about this. Can you please just tell me what all this is about?
So, I propose that we take this integral development model as a starting point of our reflection, and also as a tool to guide us in our process. So, because development implies a lot of different dimensions and levels, and this model describes 4 different dimensions, starting in the south with the nature, the local community, and building on that, a collective consciousness will emerge and will lead us to the east part of the model, where all these cultural and spiritual aspects, which are really, really very important, and then the north, knowledge, education. Education is really the key in development. You cannot do anything without education. And you have also this financial and realm of action aspect, really affecting the business, the economics. So I propose we use this as a tool to analyze.
What's also very interesting about this model is maybe you notice the little blue circles on top. So there are 4 rounds. So development starts with yourself, and then it goes on to the organization, to the society, and then to the world. And right now, I think with EDEMCS we are on round 2, and I have the feeling the organization is a little stuck on that round and has troubles, of course, going to the next level, which would be the entire society.
Okay, all of this sounds very interesting, but it's very theoretical. So how do you think one could apply it to the organization we're discussing, the EDEMCS?
Well, I'm thinking, as you say, we can't. It's a nice model to start with, but you can't just use a model like this if you don't adapt it a little bit. So, first thing that comes up to my mind right now is that actually we could use the different letters EDEMCS maybe to fit them in our model. So maybe starting with the South, I'm thinking EVU in the South, which is, as we've seen, all about who we are, about rootedness, we can say. I think EVU would fit nice in the South.
I've got one question. What is EVU? What does EVU stand for?
It's the name of Providence, of the community of the area.
It's the EVU community from
so it's a community.
Yes, exactly. Good question. Going to the East, which is the East all about having a balanced and peaceful co-evolution. You could say, I think that development would fit nice in there. I don't know what you guys think.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think we could elaborate further on that. Coming to the North, I mean, obviously North is the education. So, yeah, as you said before, education is a strong, important factor to stress. And basically the approach we could take is that to reframe knowledge in order to create systematic approaches on how to empower everyone via education. And basically something similar can account for the West, which is the cooperative aspect of the EDEMCS, which is basically rebuilding the infrastructure, creating economic growth, and then empowering the entire community via economic activity. That's a good approach.
So we're left with 2 other words, but that's perfect, because I think multi-purpose society, I think that's what's in the center of all this. They want to create a society which is integral in all these ways, so I think that it would be good to put that in the center.
I just would like to add the notion of communitalism. For me, it's really central, this notion. It's a theory developed by Father Adodo, and he describes it as a humanistic capitalism. So with a care for the environment, care for local community. So you start with the nature, with the local community, and you build on it with a bottom-up approach, inside out. And that's really, the final goal would be to awake, to activate the community, and to awake a form of collective consciousness.
Didn't you also have a different name for that as well?
Yeah, he called us Pax Africaner.
Okay, I forgot that.
Okay, that's very interesting, but how about you guys tell me more about the exact content of these 4 or 5 spheres?
Yeah, well, maybe starting with the South. The South seems more logical. So the realm of relationship with the EVU, as we said before. So I have the impression that EVU and that Pax Herbals has a strong emphasis on local tradition. As we mentioned, they're using local plants, for example, for the medicine. There's also quite a big reliance on local agents. So they employing quite a big amount of people, local people who are also employed. So I'm thinking they're quite well rooted in this.
Yes, this is very interesting, because it reminds me of the concept of Arturo Escobar to reactivate the vitality of place, and like this to reverse the local global imbalance by this bottom-up process, which would be kind of a scientific input to what the organization is doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. But if you want to motivate, if you want to gather, to connect the community, you need a collective meaning. You need a collective a consciousness, a vision, and an identity to it. This is the realm of inspiration. So the eastern part of our model. And from the discussion we had with Amadeus, we can say that this is one of the major improvement direction for EDEMCS. Because it seems like the whole association is relying a lot on the central figure of Father Adodo, and through the creation of a collective story, we could really get the people to be more proactive, I think.
Yeah, because like in those conversations, they talked also about the politicians that are there, that of course bring a lot of knowledge and are active, but also that people that could be driven by their personal interests. And I don't know if you remember, but Amadeus also mentioned that sometimes there's a lack of self-initiative when Father Adodo is not around. So maybe this creating a vision could help tackle these problems. I don't know what you think. Or...
Yeah, totally. I agree as well. One thing that comes up to my mind as well is this eastern part is also all about identity, I have the impression, and about stories, about collective stories, or narratives that we share. And one thing that's coming up to my mind right now is that actually I have the impression that this community or Pax Rebels actually don't have their own story. I mean, we've asked them several times for maybe collective stories, for example, for myths maybe that they would share or anything, and we couldn't come across any.
Yeah, even though the Nigerian culture is filled with narratives and stories like we saw in the thesis.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this also relates to Harris and Owen, this concept of collective storytelling, to activate collective meaning by co-creating a vision or a story. This might be one way for EDEMCS to create an identity.
Possibly.
And then to come back to the notion of education, which is really crucial, and the key point here is to collect and to generate local knowledge. Education is the motor, the driver of development. We all know that, but we have to focus on the indigenous and the local knowledge, not bringing in Nigeria some outside Western knowledge. Really taking the local knowledge and develop it for the entire community. So they have some projects. I don't know if you heard about it. Some projects in this direction. For example, the library, but for some financial reason, I think the project is in standby. So there is a lot of improvement possible in this field.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm thinking right now maybe one way to improve would be maybe to look at what others or what other organizations have done in this direction. One example that comes up to my mind is the one from Zimbabwe, the calabash of knowledge creation in Zimbabwe. So I don't want to talk too much into detail, but it's basically a mix between Nonaka's and Takeuchi's Seaside model, the knowledge creating company, and of Lessem and Schiefer's Integral World. So it's a mix actually between the two. It's a learning organization concept that they implemented there, which helped them fighting against the huge skill losses that they had over there. They had over and over people from Zimbabwe that would actually leave either the country or at least the community in which they were. Which is also a problem that happens in Nigeria and in Igbo with the youth, for example, that doesn't want to stay in the village because it's lame, they think, or because they just want to go to the cities. Or I think they could learn something.
Yeah, another case comes to my mind. Maybe you've heard of it. It's the case of Koro in India. Yeah, and it's. There, what they do, it's all about empowering the individual. So at the beginning, it was especially towards women, to empower women. So what they do is pretty much they want to create grassroots leaders. So the goal is to create leaders that then will tackle the main societal problems, and that you can't start directly by tackling the big problems, pretty much.
So basically, the idea which we could say we have here is that we take an international model, an international example, and try to create a local model in order to improve the educational situation at the EV community.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally, because I think that's what's very important, like in the example you talked about from the Zimbabwean calabash of knowledge, is that it's very rooted in the Zimbabwean culture, and I think that's why it's very important that they, Nigeria, co-create this model, and that we can't do that from here. From outside.
Because the calabash is this, I think, this recipient they have, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry?
What about the fourth sphere of the model?
Yeah, I want to speak about that, because we are at a business university, so we all know the importance of this financial aspect. So in this field, EDEMCS has a really strength in it because he has this project called Pax Herbals, which is employing more than 100 people in laboratories, and factories. So that's a really good example of a community-based enterprise who brings employment and revenue in the community.
Yeah, we definitely cannot underestimate the role it plays in creating direct growth via the company, but also indirect growth in the community. Yeah. I mean, obviously the new suppliers and like the entire network which belongs to such a big company is vital for the entire community. But also like the opportunity it creates, the health it offers to the people, the funds and the research opportunities, as you already said, it's just like vital for the empowerment of the region.
Yeah.
Also in the sense that their knowledge is being valued. For once, I have the impression that
because it's based on traditional medicine and traditional knowledge.
But now, I mean, we don't have much time. I need to leave soon. I don't know. Maybe you could help us. I don't know. We still don't really know. Yeah, could you help us? What do you think?
Talking to you guys about this case. And now I would like to maybe draw a conclusion from a more outside standpoint. I think that in the southern and the western sphere, the EDEMCS organization and Pax Herbals are already pretty strong by focusing on traditional knowledge and focusing on the Pax Herbals project. But they are possibly still lacking further development of the eastern and northern sphere. So what comes out of our talk is that we could suggest to further develop their eastern sphere by putting emphasis on the co-creation of a vision for the organization, co-creating identity in order to substitute the catalytic role of Father Ansem Adodo himself.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
My suggestion for the northern sphere would be to follow the two examples of Zimbabwe and India to try and further strengthen the educative aspect, once by empowerment of the individual, and then the tackling of societal problems, as it has been done with Goro, and on the other aspect, the knowledge creation and the preservation of traditional knowledge by the example of Zimbabwe and the Calabash of Knowledge.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much for your input.
I think it's very good, but I think it's also important EDEMCS is a very young organization, and I mean, we have been fairly critical, but it's important to say that they do a lot of things. They have achieved already a lot, so I think it's important that they keep focusing on their strength. And if I could make a little metaphor, I don't know, if you say EDEMCS is Father Adodo's baby, right now it's starting to be a teenager, so it still needs his father, and it's normal. But I think in the future it will grow up and be able to stand on its own.
Yeah. Going towards a community, an autonomous and self-organizing entity. Yeah.
So guys, it was very interesting. Thank you for this very much talk.
Nice.